All right, we're live. Welcome back to another episode of the Virtual Millionaire Show. I'm your host, Michael McDonald, and I have with me today Bob McIntosh. How you doing today, Bob?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me on, and hello, internet world.
I love it, man. So excited to have you here because I think you have a very unique skill set and ability that a lot of people are going to resonate with. But before we get into all of your story, kind of catch people up to speed about a little bit about yourself, who you are, and how you got into digital marketing and real estate.
Yeah, so been doing real estate since 2008, so it's been a hot minute. And read a book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Had some money. Was like, let's do real estate. Yeah, had no idea what I was doing. Lost a bunch of money in our first deal. Figured it out from there. Kind of made it work. That's the short version. But what happened was a little bit longer. Is my dad and I worked together flipping houses for a long time. We did it all in Buffalo, New York. And I realized early on, because I had actually moved to Los Angeles to more or less avoid winter, as you could imagine. Buffalo winter, no thanks.
I can relate.
And I was like, no, how do I provide value from 3,000 miles away? What can I do in a virtual sense? And that was even before the idea of virtual, even remote work didn't even really exist at that point in time. Not really, not like it does anyways today. And so I got very good at two things: digital marketing and raising money. And so I said, how do I, provide that value? And that's where I excelled at. And through doing that, our business generated, it's probably close to 40% of all of our deals from digital marketing specifically. So that's been awesome. Obviously, it works. And through that process, several of the largest real estate investor education companies in the world reached out to me saying, how are you doing what you're doing? Will you help us? And so I created a program for many of them to teach their students how to do digital marketing. And then a couple of years ago said, instead of just teaching it, which is great, and that's all fine and dandy, what if I actually just did it for people? And so we opened a marketing agency a few years ago, and now we just kind of execute it on behalf of folks. Because what I found is that most investors love the idea of digital marketing, but just don't have the time, don't have the tech savviness, or at least perceived tech savviness, and or just don't want to.
Amazing. Well, you touched on a lot of things that I want to dive into. First and foremost, I love digital marketing, and it is how we do deals in our real estate business. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that here in a little bit. But before we do that, I do want to touch on one of the probably most important things for people to know who are listening, who maybe haven't gotten their first deal. You said you got your first deal and you lost a bunch of money. Can we talk about that?
Yeah. um, Short version is I was a cocky 23-year-old or so and said, you know what? I read a couple books. And by the way, like I do also want to quantify the world of real estate at that point in time as an investor was so different. Like there was no like coaching, kind of, but not really. Minds, there was no groups. Facebook groups didn't even exist. I mean, heck, at that point in time, Facebook was still for college students only, right?
So you're
Like
saying it's
so,
not even fair these days with all the resources that we have available
it's
to us.
not even close, right? So
Right.
I went to like Barnes and Noble, or might have, I don't even remember, whatever bookstore at that time. I bought like 4 or 5 books on real estate, read them all, and figured I knew everything. I was going to take over the world. And but also bought, just bought at the wrong time, right? 2008, I had no idea it was coming. None of us really did at that point in time. And so every single month as I'm going by doing work, I'm watching my value of my house precipitously decline. And it was no good. Made a bunch of mistakes, a lot of things I learned: wrong contractor, wrong time, wrong buying price, wrong exit strategy. Like just did everything wrong. But I learned a lot. I learned a ton. And even though we've lost on other deals since then, we've made up much, much more than that in the time since then.
School of hard knocks. I can appreciate it. I respect it. I don't know too many people who went through 2008, and especially if you're just getting started during that era. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what a time. I haven't heard too many people who haven't lost money in this real estate business. Is the longer you're in here, the more of a chance you have. I mean, investing's risky, but we do things to mitigate our risk, obviously. So how has your business adapted since those lessons that you learned? Like what's your business look like today on the real estate side? How has it progressed?
Yeah. So I mean, our current business model is a little weird, and I want to asterisk it with, this is not something to necessarily model, and it's probably going to be way harder for most to achieve this now than it was for me. But at this point in time, because we've been into business for so long of buying houses, I don't have to actually market in my market anymore. Pretty much everybody who does real estate knows who we are, unless
Love
they're
it.
brand new. And if they're brand new, they find out real quick who we are, because we've just been around doing it for so long. So deals get brought to me now. I don't have to really focus on that, which is kind of weird to say, and it's also crazy to think that that's a possibility. And also, Buffalo's a smaller market, right? We're not talking about a Los Angeles or Miami or New York, like just much less competition in the space. But when you're looking at everything, like the ability to market online right now and be seen and become an authority and an influencer, and I don't mean that in the generic BS way, but in the space that you operate in, especially in the local market or even in the neighborhoods you operate in, like that's the best way. Like I think it's an untapped resource. And if you look at like if I was going to start from scratch right now with nothing, the first thing I would do is just go ham on social media.
Mm.
There's so many groups and opportunities and networking meetings and places that have gone virtual and Zoom calls and things that are just like, even some of it, like most of it's even free, which is even crazier. Like when I started, it was like pay for everything. I was like, oh, you want to join the Zoom call once a month? It's 10 grand. It's like, okay, wait, what? So it's very different game. But I would start there. Why? Because if you are seen, and then you follow through, obviously, with the action. I mean, that's kind of a given. But if you do those two things, you're going to build something, and you're going to be able to kind of pick it up from there.
Yeah, it's such a good point, man. I mean, obviously, it's 2023. Like reputation, online, digital, it's the future. Like whether we like it or not, that's where we're headed. And
I'd say it's
especially
already there.
we're there. Like, yeah, we're there and past with AI and all this crazy stuff. But what I think is so cool is the fact that Buffalo, you own that market. You're the authority there. But if I heard correctly, you don't live in Buffalo at this point, right?
Correct. I actually live 100% nomadically. I'm on the road 100% of the time. So in the moment, I'm in Malibu, California. Here. I'll be in, I think, Orlando or just outside of Orlando near Daytona Beach for a few days. Then I'll be up in Savannah. I've got trips to Toronto coming up. I've got Costa Rica planned again, Mexico. Like I'm all over the place. This is the great part. Like you can do what you need to do from anywhere if you have the right systems. And something else I want to touch on real quick, because I think this is an underutilized term, an underutilized methodology of marketing, and hyper effective for anyone that's trying to do virtual. But you said reputation. The world of real estate investing, despite what you may think, especially if you're newer, is insanely small. It's a very, very, very tiny community in comparison to many things. And if you do the wrong things and you build the wrong reputation, whether it be stealing deals out from underneath people, doing the wrong things in the wrong way, like you will be found out, you will be seen, and there's no recovering from that once you're there. Like you burn the bridge, it's done in this little world.
Blacklist. See you later.
Right? Exactly. But at the same time, while that's, there's not a lot of forgiveness there for those that do the right thing and operate the right way and build that reputation and then maintain and put it out online that, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how we're operating. Like for those people, it magnifies it just as much as it can detract from it if you do the wrong thing, if you do the right thing. And so I think that's a huge thing to understand too, especially if you're newer. Like stand by what you do, stand by your word. Like I can say confidently, even though we've lost money in deals, like a bunch of deals, every single lender I've ever borrowed money from, every single one got paid back all their money and all the interest for the extra time I carried their money. Not one lender has ever lost from me. Why? Because that's important to me. I understand that the long-term value of that relationship is huge. And so I wanted to touch on that because I think it's not talked about enough in real estate.
It's so good, man. I mean, it's reputation's everything and the long game. I always tell people that. Like my clients, it's like, hey guys, we're in this for the long term. And by the way,
Yep.
if you're doing good business, make sure to get people's testimonies that you are doing good business because people
Yeah.
want to know. Like the first thing that people do when they go to sell or buy anything, what do? Search on Google, right? Typically,
Look you up.
they look you up. Hey, is this person legit? So I love the fact that you're able to run this remote business. You have a huge footprint on the digital marketing space. You're traveling. You're Malibu. I got to say, man, I'm gonna be in Malibu in a couple weeks, and I cannot wait to be there. But tell me a little bit about digital marketing and like how does somebody go from maybe not knowing anything about digital marketing to where do I start?
Yeah. So when we look at digital marketing, we got to kind of look at marketing as a whole and understand that within all marketing, and digital included, there's two kinds of marketing. There's inbound and outbound. And as investors, outbound is where most of us focus. It's, oh, I'm doing paid ads, sending out direct mail, putting out flyers, going to meetings, whatever it is, MLS. That's us looking for deals, which is great. Inbound is, in my opinion, infinitely more powerful, infinitely more scalable in terms of your time, and more important, it's also you're going to get better deals in this way. Now, when we look at the digital space specifically, and you kind of nailed it on the head with the first thing anyone's going to do, especially if you're new, is they're going to look you up. What's your deal? Show me that you're trustworthy, that you can solve my problem, answer my question, handle my issue, whatever it might be. Can I trust you to do what I need you to do as your client or customer? And if they can't find you, right? The only thing worse than having no website at all is having a really bad one. The only thing worse than having no social media at all is having a really bad presence. And this doesn't mean that it has to be perfect, right? Like, that's not the goal, but you got to have the right stuff in the right place. And my business partner says this all the time, and I love it, which is a website specifically may not make you money directly. Like, you might not get a ton of leads from it that actually go there and say, hey, here's my information, but it will cost you money. Because when they go there, if they don't think they can trust you, the site looks dated and old, or it's not there at all, or you're not found if they Google you, then you've already lost a lot of credibility. Think about how many leads, how many businesses have you personally, whoever's watching or listening to this, like, how many times have you looked up something and then didn't find what you expected to find, regardless of whether your expectation was legitimate or not, and come into that business, you had an expectation of finding something you didn't, and like that, you left and went someplace else or did someone else. That's happening to you too, especially in real estate, and especially with sellers. Why? Because they're a judgmental group. They're in a stress situation. They don't know who to trust. They feel like everyone has turned on them and the world is hurting them particularly. And you're just another person that they got to fight against to try to get what they think is theirs. And the moment that that's true, the moment that they're against you, your everything is being scrutinized, whether you realize it or not. And so there's deals that you have definitely lost if you have no website. And if you have a terrible website, or bad, or an old one, or just out of date looking one, then even more so, people are noticing, hey, this is what's going on. This is how it's working. So we'll start there.
Okay, that's a great place to start. So get yourself a website, get yourself on the map, have a presence, but make sure it's clean and professional, and that somebody, if they come there, they're not going to say no. Like, yeah, I don't want to go there. But rather than, hey, this person looks legit, I would like to do business with them. Like, that's where we want them to be. So now that we have that set up, what are some digital marketing channels that you help real estate investors with? And like, can we talk about those? I mean, I think I know, but I want to hear from you.
I mean, so there's all kind. When we look at digital marketing, I'm also going to wrap in a couple other things too. So for example, email and text marketing. Even though text is technically a phone, not an online, the reality is for most of us, we're using a CRM like ours or anybody's, right? That does texting to reach out to folks. So it's ended up, it's wrapped into that world. Text marketing by far is still the best way. Even if it's not necessarily, like, I know that there's a lot of regulations that just went into place in December with texting and things of that nature, but it still works very well. And even if you're not doing cold outbound texting, people still want to be able to text to people that they're talking with. So that's number one. Don't sit on email marketing. I know everyone, it's funny, for the last 10 years, email marketing has been crapped on as, oh, no one does email marketing anymore. There's too many emails. No one reads those things. And yet every single year, it still has some of the best ROI of any marketing ever. In fact, I believe, I don't know if the 2022 numbers are out yet. It's usually right around now that they release them. But the 2021 number, I believe, was somewhere around $39 ROI for every $1 spent in email marketing. Like, where else are you going to find that? Right? Like,
dude, hold on a second. I've done every marketing under the sun. Okay. Email marketing is not one that I've done. So can we please talk about this? How does this pertain to a real estate marketer, investor?
In every single way. So here's the thing. When we think about digital marketing, and this will swing back around to email marketing. So stick with me for a second.
I'm with you.
The single best thing about digital marketing is that it gives us the ability to be omnipresent, right? We can be physically marketing, we can be digital marketing on social media, we can be on websites, we can be on Google search results or ads if we want to. We can be in all these places. And yet, one thing is always true. Despite all the channels that exist, there is only a couple of channels that someone spends significant amounts of time in every single day without fail. And those are really only two, right? We might think it's Facebook or social media because they go there a lot, but not every day. Some people go a lot, maybe, but not every day, right? The two that are almost guaranteed for almost every single person to be every single day, texts and email, right? You're in those two things. And especially if you're in real estate, right? You're trying to sell a house or buy a house, or whatever it is you're doing, you're going to be checking your email. And so here's the thing that people also get wrong, in my opinion. They think, oh, email only has, if I'm really good, a 30% open rate. Like that's a very good open rate, especially to cold traffic. And the immediate assumption is, well, if they're not opening my emails, it's not working. But that's also not true. Think about this. Think about a store or a shop or some place that you find a lot of value in, that you get emails from on a regular basis. Do you open every email? Probably not.
Top of mind awareness though.
But yeah, exactly. I see you in the inbox. Yeah. Every single day, every single week, every single whatever. Oh, there it is. So that when I'm thinking about something that pertains to that business, who's top of mind? I am. Even if you never open a single email from me, you're still going to remember, like, oh man, there's that guy, Bob. Yeah, he did something in real estate. What, Bob? And then they search your email and boom, there you are. Because even if they delete most of your emails, a few will still make it through. And so when we look at email marketing, where is it going to be great for? Sellers, of course, obviously, right? But also buyers, whether they be investor buyers or retail buyers, but especially investor buyers, right? Top of mind. Oh, I need a deal this month. I need to buy something. Who do I go to? Oh, you wholesale deals. Let me call you up and see what you got right now, right? Oh, I saw an email from him recently. Like it's always going to be good for that. Potential and current private money lenders. This one's huge. You have like the number of deals, the number of lenders I've closed simply because I continued to email them ad nauseum. It might have been a year or 2 years. And they finally, like, I actually was maybe like 6 months ago, I think. We just had someone come on board. He's like, yeah, I've been getting your emails for like 2 years. I guess I finally decided it was time to like pull the trigger and like do this thing. So, I don't know if I have enough to really invest with someone like you or not, but I've got about $500,000. So can we figure out something? I was like, I think we can make it work.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. Okay, cool. So you can speak to all these audiences, your buyers, sellers, lenders. I love this. I have all of these people in my database. So now these are people who have expressed interest. They've came through a funnel or a landing page at some time, right? We're not just, I want to make sure we're clear here. We're not blasting the whole community, right?
It's very segmented, right? So, like for example, so we have our own CRM, and within that CRM, I can do tags. And so every single page you land on, whether it's my core page from my website, a landing page or squeeze page, whether it's a social platform, whether it's from a podcast and I give out a unique link or whatever it might be, right? They're always going to get tagged. So I know exactly who that person is. And then if I have conversations, I might add other tags because someone might be an investor buyer, but also a PML, right? Yep. Like they could be in both worlds. Gotcha. And so then I can go into my CRM and say, okay, I need to send I got a new deal I need to raise money for. Let me check mark every PML in my list, send out a quick email about a deal I got going. Just like that, I've hit, in my case, I think I've got about 2,600 lenders across our thing. And most of them have never lended to me. Like probably 95% have never lent to me, but I know that if just 1% decide to, I'll have more money than I could ever need.
I love that. Okay, so for somebody like me who this is a little bit, not something I'm doing, right? I have emails. I understand email marketing to the extent of, I have a bucket, tag sellers, buyers, private lenders. What do I do to stay in front of them consistently? Like, do you have a copywriter or what's my messaging? I feel like I would just burn out myself if I'm trying to think this stuff through and send them messaging to this many people. So can you kind of talk about the approach in that?
Yeah. So the approach is going to be very different for every single different kind of person that we're talking to. So keep that in mind. We can't just say, here's a universal approach, right? Sure. So that's number one. Number two, understand that Your goal should always be to continuously be creating content so that your email sequence lives forever. And what I mean by that is my list operates generally on an unsubscribe or die. That's the only two ways you're going to stop getting emails from me. Okay. And when I do that, here's what ends up happening. So a couple of things. First and foremost, so let's just say that I'm going to send out on average 3 emails per week. Okay. And I'm not, for many of us that might, like, ideally, depending on the list, you might need to go as much as daily. Right. But let's just keep it simple. 3 emails a week. Right. Now, different people, different things. I want to be careful when I say 3 a week. Like, potential private money lenders don't need 3 emails a week or they're going to unsubscribe, guaranteed, right? Like, right. They're probably good once every other week, or, maybe twice a month, maybe, whatever. But like sellers, they're going to need like more frequency. Like, the more flighty or more like, or more time sensitive, for example, a foreclosure, like anything like that, we want to email more frequently. The less time sensitive, the less frequent we email, right? But the goal should be always keep writing emails and just keep adding them to your sequence. So every single person in my list gets added to a drip sequence. And the last step, at least for our database, our CRM, in that sequence is always a holding pattern. And I set it for 1 year, because I know that within 1 year or less, I'm going to write another email. And so what'll happen is, if my goal is 3 emails a week, so then once a month, I try to write 12 to 15 emails. And by the way, an email doesn't have to be very long, 250 words. And guess who can do that for you these days? ChatGPT can write some really good emails. Again, you still got to like work them, massage them, make them sound like you, but it can help you get there a lot faster, right? And so then what I do is I just add those in. I change the 1 year time frame to like 1 day or whatever the next step is, and just move the next one down so that it's spacing out. And the goal is, as long as I continue to add emails in that way, I'll always keep adding someone. So then every time someone subscribes to any list and they get tagged with that kind of sequence, they'll go through the list that's continuing to get longer and longer as time goes on. Like this. So this is how you win over time, versus trying to say, oh, I got to write an email every single, every other day for every single person. You'll never be successful at that long term.
Stack it up, right? Stack it up, plan ahead, drip it all out, and speak to them. And call to action, right? That's important. What are they?
To a certain extent, right? So this is a good rough ratio, not universal. So, let's take that for what it is. But I try to do no more than 1 call to action for every 2 value emails. And that's at a minimum basis. Now, if I'm talking to investor buyers, I can send out 10 deals, because that to them, there's value in a call to action of, here's a deal, go check it out. Right. Yep. Right. But if I'm just talking about, let's say I'm talking to a private money lender, for example, right? Like, I'm not going to say, call me to get your money working for you. Call me to get your money, or email.
They know who you are. They know how to get a hold of you.
But I'll talk about the documents. I'll talk about example loans. I'll talk about things that happened. I'll talk about things that went wrong and how we handled it. I'll share the journey. And that's another thing too. Like, share your journey, share your story. Those things matter. But keep it simple. You don't have to share. Let's just say your story could be broken up into 10 emails. Don't put it in one, write 10, right? Just space them out.
Wow. This is so good, man. This is a whole new world to me. Do you have your own proprietary system that you use for email marketing, or do you have like one that anybody listening to this could grab?
Anyone's welcome
to grab yours too.
They're welcome to grab it. So, we use common third-party technology. So the technology is always the same as most anybody else out there. It's got all the stuff that you want, right? Like contacts and, texting and emailing and ringless voicemail and blah, 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 all that, right? But what we've done differently is I've overlaid my knowledge of digital marketing into it. So, for example, I believe we have right now 34 drip sequences already built. And they, for private money lenders, sellers, buyers, all that. It's not perfect, right? It's not forever, but it's a good start for most people, especially if you haven't done anything. And then the thing that we do, and one of the benefits of going with us versus anybody else, is simply that as I find new sequences, or I write them for myself, or I see something that's working, or I find someone else's that's really good and I buy it from them, we just drop those in for our users. I want everyone to what we call R&D my stuff, rip off and duplicate, right? Because I know that, hey, like, all of our people that we're talking to, like the Venn diagram of our overlap of contacts is going to be very small no matter what. So I'm happy to share everything that works for me, because I know if it works for me, it'll work for you. And if it works for you, you'll stay around for a while.
Well, I'm interested. So what is it? What's the service, and how can people learn more about that?
Yeah. So you can head to velocitycrm.app, APP. And everything's right there. You can sign up. You get 2 months free if you come on for a whole year. All the sequences are in there. Like I said, we have 34 now, and it's a mix, right? Some of them are email and text, some text only, some email only. But again, I think we have sellers, investor buyers, retail buyers, contractors, agents, and private money lenders. And we're adding, I think we have residential assisted living coming soon and a bunch of other ones. I think there's like 15 or 18 more in development right now that will be dropping in there very soon. And by the way, like one of the other things that I always talk about, and you guys are welcome to come follow me. I post as much content as I can about this kind of stuff, but I'll tell you right now, if you master your digital marketing game, especially as someone doing virtual real estate, like you're only going to see better results. And this is not to say that non-virtual can't work, because it absolutely can, but doing it this way enables you to have the time and location freedom, which most of us are after in the first place.
Right. So I love this, guys. And so check out that velocitycrm.app. I'm looking at the website right now. There's a ton of different features here, which is pretty cool. Now, if I wanted to target like a foreclosures, like you said, would they have to opt into my website first? Because I mean, I have hundreds of thousands of records in my database. Can you talk to me about that? Like, what should I do or what I shouldn't do? Like, I know there's gray areas, pretty much just like anything with ringless voicemail and stuff like that too. But what do you think?
I mean, emailing and texting anyone who's not positively opted in, technically it's pure black, but really in operationally standpoint, I mean, we're like 50 shades of gray here. Like, someone might come smack you a little bit. You might enjoy it. Maybe not. I don't know. That's for you to decide, but it depends. Right. So here's kind of, let's break it down email and let's versus text, because they are a little bit different. And let's also define a couple of pieces of terminology just so that we're all on the same page. First and foremost, when we talk about cold, what that means is they've not risen their hand. They've not given you permission to market to them. When it comes to email, technically speaking, you are allowed to email anybody one time from an automated marketing sequence without violating the Canned Spam Act. But in that one time, they have to then positively opt in to continue to receive emails. Now, we all know that nobody actually follows that. Let's be real. Like, right. How many of us get emails all the time, right? So it's a gray area. Technically, is it a violation? Yes. Are you going to go to jail? No, I don't think not that I know of. Have they jailed anybody for this? Could they give you a fine? Yeah, possibly. But I always look at every fine in my business as, well, even if I got fined, like, what's the probable fine and what's the likelihood? And does that still make sense? Because it might still make sense to do that marketing, even knowing that. Now, the other thing that I always talk about is when it comes to email marketing, understand that don't make it hard for them to want to leave. So here's the deal, right? Like, let's say I'm emailing 100,000 contacts that don't really want to hear from me. If I make it hard for them to unsubscribe, then what's going to happen instead is they're going to click the spam button, and the spam button is going to dramatically decline your domain sender reputation, which means your emails are now more likely to end up in spam moving forward. Okay. So that's a terrible thing to do. I would never do that. What I would do is say, hey, like, are you still interested in doing this thing? If not, you can unsubscribe here and then go into details. Like, make it really simple. So if they don't want to hear from you, they do that. Because if they unsubscribe, it won't hurt your sender reputation as much. It's minor. Like, it's infinitesimal, versus if they click the spam, like that's terrible, especially if you get over about 1.5% of your sends marking you spam, your domain reputation is going to tank very quickly, and all your emails will simply end up in spam and no one's going to see them, which defeats the whole purpose to start with. Right.
Yep.
So keep that in mind. Can you do it? Sure. Absolutely. Just, give them an easy way to do that. Now, texting. There's pros and cons to texting. The government seems to have gone a little bit more strict on texting. The short version of the regulation that went into place in December is the government was going to step in and say, we're going to do this. And all the carriers were like, whoa, hang on a second. Let us figure it out first. And if it still doesn't fix it, then we can go that direction. But they really just didn't want the government giving them an enema for their business model. So right. they took care of it themselves. So what does it mean now? If you want to send text effectively and not be marked as spam from a text standpoint, you have to register a business or a name to the number that you're texting from. Okay. Can you do cold texting still? Absolutely. Just realize that if people report you and mark you as spam, just like they can with email, they can do the same with text now. If that happens too often, again, your number is going to get blacklisted. to the point where best case scenario, you're marked spam. Worst case scenario, your texts are actually blocked at the carrier level, so the recipients never even get them. So that is a bigger possibility. And it's also something that's not happening as much in email. Like email will always go through. It'll just end up in the spam folder, but at least like if they go there, they can still find you potentially. If you go to, if you spam on text, literally it just never arrives. It just goes into a black hole of that. So understand that. Now, also understand that right now, this is all uncharted territory, right? Like we're still kind of learning and figuring out where can we push limits and where can we not. So here's my recommendation, but take this with an asterisk. I am not an attorney. I am not an accountant. I am neither of these things. Please seek this advice. I'm simply a guy providing some, advice from my perspective. It seems to me that right now they're looking to make an example of somebody, but they haven't found that person yet. The person that does will probably be someone who goes large. Like it's not someone who's going to be out sending a couple thousand texts a month. In most cases, if you're not even sending 6,000 texts a month, you're still considered essentially a small carrier or a small sender in that capacity. So understand numbers make a difference, right? If you're sending 20,000, 100,000 texts a month cold, like that's a different game than if you're sending 6,000 or less.
Right.
With that said, the big providers like Twilio and many of the others that most of us use in the backside have gotten very savvy at finding out who's doing this stuff, and they'll shut you down because their reputation's on the line as well. So it's just a game of playing. It's kind of like whack-a-mole, right? Like you can kind of pop up and send things and then they whack you down, you go a different one. If you're wanting to play the game, but realize that playing the game comes with the risk of fines. I don't think jail time at this point in time is on the table, but fines, definitely. They've talked about that already. And it also comes with having your account shut down, right? So once you register your business to a number, if you spam it and you get marked that way with that carrier, like Twilio, for example, if you register that same business with any new number, you'll be shut down pretty much forever, right? So there is risk. Just understand that. So what does that mean for most of us as investors? Well, it means we can still do cold texting and all that. Two things are going to help you reduce that probability of getting shut down permanently or permabanned. Number one, make it easy for someone to opt out. Send in your initial text, reply stop to unsubscribe. Simultaneously, you should have a system, and ours will do this for you as well if you want it to, that recognizes user responses that indicate someone who may not want to receive messages from you anymore, such as, I don't know if I can swear or not, but like the F word or F off or get the F out of here or shut up, or like many of these, like I think we've identified, I don't know, I want to say like 30 or 40 phrases that people use commonly. And we apply those so that if anyone responds with any of those words, immediately it shuts it off. We stop texting them because I don't want them to report me as spam and for it to get reported that way. Now, this also comes with, it's like everything, there's no free lunch. Doing that also means if they say, oh, fucking A, man, this is awesome, right? It might also block them, right? So there's pros and cons. You got to look at each one, you got to look at it as, but for this, with the current status, I always say err on the side of more cautious than not right now. And so we kind of sift out and see where does the gray lie and how many shades deep can we go before we have to run into issues.
Wow.
Sorry, that was a long answer.
No,
I know, but it was important.
No, like I'm soaking all this in. This is great information, and I'm very familiar with this side of the world with texting and calling and stuff like that. And we have had some issues with some of the providers that we're using. And I'm wondering, is there like a big database where if you got canned by Plivio or Trilio, right? Do they have a ultimate database where they can report that to say, yes, hey, don't do business with this brand because they're blacklisted?
More or less, yeah. So the database is at the carrier level. So every carrier will set that blacklist essentially. But the reality is there's only 4 carriers there that matter. There's AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint, which are actually technically the same, although they operate separately, technically speaking, but they're the same business. And there's a ton of other carriers, but all those other carriers essentially white label one of those 4's bandwidth and networks, especially for texting. And so really those are the only 4 that matter. So, and they are currently, as far as we are aware, cross-sharing their lists. So once you hit one, usually within a month or 2, you're on all the lists.
Is that why people create LLCs and like try to game the system? And here's
Yep,
this brand, here's this brand. There's 15 businesses that they're just going for
exactly.
it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Because then you have 15 different EINs. So look, here's the reality too. And much like email marketing, if you send one text and then they don't positively reply or ask for some confirmation, like, "Hey, can I send you more?" Then because here's the other thing too. If they respond to your text with anything outside of the what the carriers consider the standardized unsubscribe words, which is unsubscribe, stop, and there's a couple others I forget off the top of my head, but those are the two big ones. Um, if they respond with anything else, the carrier notes that, and immediately your score kind of goes up. And so they're
Mm.
like, so I always try to say,
Now your eyes are
hey,
on them. They're on
yeah,
you.
right. So I always try to say, like, ask a question that they'll respond to, like, hey, I heard you might want to sell your house at 123 Main Street. Is that the case?
I like that.
Okay, yes or no, right? Now they respond, and guess what? If they respond yes or no, either way, it's not one of the bad words like unsubscribe or stop. And unless they subscribe, do that. But I get them to responding, and because of that, it helps boost the score. Because I know that some people are just going to be a-holes and they're going to say, they're going to say mean things or whatever, like, and they're going to report you spam even if they actually liked you. Like, it's just the way of the world. But
Gotcha.
it's all about a scoring system, right? So the more positive scores you get, the better off you're going to be in the long term.
That's so good, man. So really all of this data is somehow interconnected, right? Every name can have a phone number, can have an email address. So for somebody like me, I've been, direct to seller marketing for 5 years. I have a list. I mean, I have not necessarily opted in list, but I have 700,000 records, names, phone numbers, emails. So if I have a database like that, um, I know what to do on the cold side of things, but like let's just talk about my CRM where people have opted in, Google landing page, website, whatever. Like if I have all those sellers, I'm pretty much just like, what am I doing if I'm not sending email marketing to them? I'm not doing
Mhm.
that right now. So what's the first step that I should be considering? Should I just get them out of there, get the people who are sellers who have opted in, and then just start speaking to them through this email marketing messaging?
Yeah. Well, so first and foremost, you got to ask yourself, are these sellers still relevant? Right. Like, so are they, were they in a situation that was time based? So, for example, was it a divorce or a foreclosure or a probate or something where there's a time
Wouldn't put the
component to it? If
sold ones
so,
on basically, right? Get the
yeah,
solds out
yeah,
of there.
exactly. Right. Like,
Yeah,
if there's not an opportunity for me there anymore, then there's no point in spending the effort to market to them. Right. Like, if I know that they're already
right.
past their expiration date, if you will.
Sure.
Um, the rest, yeah, just and start simple. Like, hey, like, so this is one of the things that we do a lot with this, right? So our CRM has a thing called trigger links, and trigger links are super powerful because what it does is it allows me to add a link to anything I want to, and when someone clicks the link, I can within my system tell it to do something else based on that click. So, for example, I could say, hey, hey seller, are you still interested in selling 123 Main Street? Wasn't sure. I know it's been a while since we talked. Just let me know by clicking yes or no below, right? And then I have two links, one for yes, one for no. Yes, if they click yes, says marks them yes. And now I want to put them into a list to continue to market to them. Okay, can I text them? Can I email them? Can I do something else? They've positively indicated to me that they want to move forward. If they say no, I'll probably scrub them out. Just say, okay, well, no sense in marketing these folks. Are not wanting to sell their house anymore. Let's not waste the time and energy and effort and potential spam risk. Okay. Now, that's going to be
I like that.
probably less than 5% will actively click that. Why? Just because it's just numbers game, right? So that still leaves 95% that haven't. So just make sure that if there's an easy unsubscribe. So if they don't want to be a part of your list anymore, just say hit that. And I usually, if I'm reactivating a database like this, I might just say, or if you don't ever want to hear from me again, no problem, just click here, right?
Yep.
Make it simple. Don't make it complex. Don't make it hard for them to get out, because if you do, then they'll just click the spam button, and that's what you're trying to avoid.
And they'll get mad.
Yeah. And well, they're gonna get probably mad anyways, but at least if they get mad and unsubscribe, I'm still okay, versus if they get mad and spam me, right? Because
True.
those are two very different things. And then from there, if just keep at it and go. I would probably go the softer approach of like, hey, like, here's what's going on in this market. Did you know that, even though rates are up, this is what's happening in sellers are still getting top dollar, or, whatever you want to talk about in the space. It kind of doesn't matter. It's just about re-engaging with those folks to see where they're at from that standpoint. And then every probably third to fifth email, drop in a, hey, like, were you interested in getting an offer on your house? Like, let's talk, or, click here to call me, or click here to text me, or, hit this button to reply, or whatever it is, right? Like, there's a lot of options. It's just about building that rapport again. And this is something else. I mean, this gets into like super deep stuff. I don't know how we could go on a whole other episode of this, but I've done a lot of speaking on stage, and as part of that, like over 4,000 hours, we learn to engage people in a certain way. And so there's a thing called FORD, Family, Occupation, Recreation, Dreams. It's the four things. Yeah, there's 4 things that anyone will talk about. Use those in your email. Ask them about their family. Like, hey, like, I know you were interested in selling, were you trying to move you or your family someplace else? Oh, I don't have any kids. Okay, cool. Like, let me write that down. Or, oh yeah, actually we're in a 2-bedroom. I have 8 kids. I don't know what to do. Okay, cool. Let me help you with that. Right. Like, you start, like, people will talk about those 4 things about themselves all the time. So use those in your emails too, to try to get them to engage with you and say, hey, here's what's going on. Like, okay, now I know more about the person too. I can approach rapport building with them at a deeper level, and I will close more deals because of that.
This is brilliant. I love that. It's been a while since I've heard form. I think I talked to another sales trainer and he's like, yeah, form. I'm like, cool. That's good to know.
For D, like, so family, occupation, recreations, dreams.
Ford, dreams. Okay.
Ford, like the car. Yeah.
I've heard it as family, occupation, recreation equals motivation.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense too. Yeah.
Okay. So let's shift gears just a tad bit here. I know you do a ton of digital marketing for people. Can we talk about, for real estate investors who are looking to find motivated sellers, specifically using PPC? What are you seeing right now in the marketplace as far as like an ROI? Do you get that feedback from clients to say, hey, we spent 100 and we made 2 or 5, or like, what's the ROI on the current climate?
Yeah. So this number varies so much, and there's so much variability in it, and I'll cover all that. But yeah. So I mean, we do paid PPC. Yeah. So let's start with this first and foremost. In my opinion, I don't like Facebook for motivated sellers unless you're uploading like scrubbed and skip traced lists. Then maybe
retargeting specifically.
Yeah, retargeting. Yeah, but not for just. There's no demographic of a motivated seller, so it's very difficult for Facebook ads to work without me giving them data to start with. Okay, so let's start there. It's a common misconception. But Google is great. Google is phenomenal for finding sellers. It just tends to be expensive, and let's talk about what that means, because expensive is all relative, especially in the world of real estate. So my team and our partners, we're currently managing about 9 figures a month of ad spend. So I see a lot of stuff out there, not all in the real estate space. In fact, most of it's probably not the real estate space, but a good chunk of it is. And what we're seeing is a couple of things. Number one, the last 2 years, it's been very expensive to run ads, especially in, I'll call it tier A and your larger tier B cities. So that's like, New York, Miami, LA, San Fran, Dallas, Chicago, like the big boys, right? Yep. Those are still pretty expensive. Your tier B and lower cities down to like your tier C cities, those are doing okay. And I'll get into what these numbers mean. And then the rural markets where there's not very many people are crushing it from a lead gen standpoint, but seeming to be terrible from an ROI, because people get these deals in and they can't dispo them. They sit on their books, or they get rid of it, or they abandon it, right? That just seems to be the case, especially in like very rural markets, like sub 10,000 people markets, right?
Been there, done that.
Yep, most of us have. So what does that look like? Your large cities right now, on average, depending on the accounts, and this is why I say there's a lot of variable. How good are you at closing the person who calls in? How quickly can you get there? Let's talk about that for a second. PPC lead gen is dramatically impacted by how quick you get a hold of them. We see literally almost a 20% more close rate if you're able to initiate contact within 5 minutes of them filling out the form. And it doesn't have to be you personally, but somebody, right? So that's important. And then get the basics and then schedule a call. You'll do better that way. So understand that. Number 2, understand that it's still an expensive way to get leads in comparison to many others, but it's also scalable at a much faster pace. So tier A cities, we're still seeing somewhere usually around $400 per lead, and about a 9 or 10 to 1 ratio, which means 9 or 10 leads to close 1 deal. So even if I say 10, let's do the numbers. That's about $4,000 to close a deal. That's still great.
Pretty good in real estate. Yeah.
Right. But The thing is with most of these, and depending on what you're doing, it might be 2 to 6 or 8 months before you see that cash back. So if you're going to play in the PPC game, you got to figure at least 8 months of ad spend. Plus, usually you're going to have to hire someone to manage it for you, because the reality is Google's system, while they tout it as simple to use, it's easy to set up, but the optimization process is extremely complex. For example, I was just on the phone the other day with one of our clients, small budget, right? I think we're at $3,000 a month for him right now. And we made 624 optimizations to their account in 1 month. Okay.
Wow.
Most people are not at that level. Like, they don't have time to do that. My team does, because it's all we do. Like, we just stare at Google until we figure things out. But understand that's what it takes to win at the game at a good level. Now, if you're okay paying $600 a lead and you don't care because the numbers still make sense for you and you can carry that, cool. Then you can probably execute it yourself. Just realize that you're paying a whole lot more. In most cases, you'll actually get more by hiring someone else to do it for you, who's optimizing it. So it's just a game. And then in your mid-tier cities, you're still seeing between 200 and maybe 350. We have anomalies where sometimes we do way better. In some cases, the bigger budget is better. And the other thing too that's really is cool is that not too long ago, Google added in a functionality that allows us to cross-share data across the platform. So within my account, if you come with us, every single ad account that is currently managed by my team and us is simultaneously optimized by every other ad account in the data that we see. So the more people that come on board, the more data points we have, the better our results tend to get.
That's like an unfair advantage, and that's powerful. Like for you guys as a firm. So if I'm understanding this correctly, and as somebody in our group actually said this, somebody else who manages PPC, so they have like a parent company that has all of these other accounts underneath. So all of that data is getting aggregated up until this one, and all of these accounts benefit. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So it's always best. Yeah. And look, it's always great to have someone who is running it, whether it's my team or there's a lot of other, especially in the family mastermind, right? There's a lot of other people out there that do a great job with this. I'm not the only one for sure. With that said, it's super important. And I do want to state this. This is actually really, like, I can't stress this enough. Part of the reason that change was implemented is because what was happening was, for a long time, especially in real estate, it was easier and more efficient from a cost standpoint for one person to manage an entire account for everyone. So I have my account, you as an investor coming underneath mine. There's two inherent problems with that. Number one, you have to trust me. There are two for sure. I know companies that legit steal leads 100%. I can prove it. I have all the data to prove it. I'm not going to blast them out here, but they do that. Right. And they can do it because it's in their account, and you as the investor don't have access to their account. So you don't actually see what's going on. So that's also why you want your own account. Number two, with this cross sharing of data now across platforms, there's no longer a benefit to me controlling everything on my side. From a cost standpoint, I can benefit by simply having you in my account with your own account. So if anyone tells you that you have to use their account, in my opinion, run away. There is no reason for that anymore. And by the way, it's also just inherently, it devalues your company. So let's say you build up your company and you want to sell it, right? Well, if most of your leads are coming from PPC, or it's a good chunk of your leads, and you don't own that data, your value decreases as a company overall.
Wow, this has been so good, man. I could talk digital marketing. I could talk this stuff all day long. I'm sure you could too.
Days.
Before we wrap this up, man, I want to know who's your, like, how much ad spend, who's the biggest client on the home buying side, like PPC budget wise, and what is that getting them? Because we're heavy in PPC, which is why I was so excited to talk to you and learn some of these things. But like we're around 20 a month, right? For PPC. So what kind of like big dogs are out there? Like what are they doing, and what are the results they're getting? And for somebody like me who wants to keep going to a higher level.
Yeah, so it depends. There's several that are doing more than 10x what you're talking about right now per month.
Crazy. Blows my mind.
They're in multiple markets, not a single market, right? I don't know of anyone doing, like, in any single market, really. You're probably not going to exceed much more than 50,000 a month. There's just not that many motivated sellers for any single account, right? Now I could run the same 50 across 10 accounts in one market, because competition and, multiple ad placements and all that, but tends to be about the case. So they're in multiple markets. So you got to understand that too.
Like
With that said,
nationally.
yeah, nationally. With that said, for us, I can't speak to the specific client because I just don't know the number off the top of my head. I'd have to like drop in with my team and actually ask them. But in our accounts as a whole, as our master account as a whole, we're generally seeing on a low side 3x return to a high side of 8x return.
Okay.
That's the general number that we're seeing. So for those of you just like to keep numbers easy, I'm putting in 100,000. I'm seeing 300,000 to 800,000 in revenue, not profit. Let's be clear, that's revenue back in. Now, with real estate, that's a little hard to do. Generally, revenue is profit in most cases because we're not selling an item where we do that. But you're still not. It just depends. But that's between 3 and 8 is the general census. In real estate specifically, we're probably more like the 3.5 to maybe 4.5, maybe 5. If I would guess, just based on the account reports I've seen recently.
Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, if we can be in that 5x range, we're typically pretty satisfied with that. Because I mean, think about it. You put $1 in, something that you have a control on a trigger of, and you get 5 out. Come on now, who wouldn't want to do that? So
Yeah.
I love digital ads for that. What about YouTube ads? Do you guys do anything of that sort?
We do a lot of YouTube, not on the real estate side, honestly. And it's just, even though I do think there's a lot of benefit there, getting people to create videos has been difficult. Mostly because the people that are doing this want their face to be the face. And it's like, okay, well, you got to shoot the video for me. So if I don't have video, I can't really do it. With that said, we are testing some interesting things with using recording AI versions of people and then using that to create the video that we want, because I can literally have the AI person say whatever I want to, which is fascinating.
So cool.
TBD on results there. Don't have those results yet, but we'll see.
Awesome, man. Well, definitely go check out Velocity CRM. I know I'm going to. That's really awesome CRM that you built there. And then just a wealth of knowledge. This has been an absolute masterclass. If anybody has any questions for Bob, drop them in the comments below. Let us know. If you got value from today's episode, which I know I did, share this out. Tell a friend. This is a free show. We want this to reach as many people as possible. So we appreciate the sharing and liking and all of that stuff. And so with that being said, where can people, I guess 2 things, where can people learn more about you? And then let's hear some final thoughts and message you'd like to leave the listeners with.
Yeah. So if you want to connect with me, just go to GO3, like the number 3 DC Delta Charlie, or Go3DC, 3 Degrees Consulting, obviously, .com/Bob McIntosh. It's BOBMCINTOSH. Or you can look me up on any social platform, at the Bob McIntosh. I'm everywhere. But if you go to that site, it'll have all my socials and it'll have my contact card as well, so you can download that. And happy to talk to you about digital marketing. Just reach out. Let me know that you came, where you came from, just so I know where you heard this. And happy to chat websites or CRMs or paid advertising or anything digital in your business. I geek out, as is probably evident by the fact that of this call. And then just final thoughts is, today, right now, in this moment, authority is derived from attention. Attention is created through influence, and the biggest spheres of influence are online. So focus your efforts, no matter whether you're, an old dog been doing real estate for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, whatever, or you're a brand new, you just decided to get into COVID as a side gig and now it's you're doing it. Like, the reality is, if you master your game online, it will only help you create a bigger virtual presence. That virtual presence will automatically derive you more authority and attention, and both those things will get you more deals, more money, more opportunity.
Beautifully. Yeah, that's so true, man. I love it. All right, guys. Well, thank you for another episode. And with that, go follow Bob and check out his website, give him a follow in the socials, and we will see you on the next one.